I think too, one of the other I know one of the other objections that I hear more from the left, like I think people kind of that are striped kind of more conservative on the political spectrum are a little bit more amenable to the idea, especially since it's being proposed by a conservative government. But there's various levels of distrust. And one of the things that you always see on these signs at these protests on the left is keep your hands off our CPP. And they think Danielle Smith and the UCP is going to be, doing a Scrooge McDuck, swimming in their dollars and buying themselves mansions and filling their pockets. And, I have, I think, a healthy level of distrust for all levels of government. But, my question is, and I know the answer to this question myself, but for the audience out there, what would be the difference between a provincial government handling your money and a federal government handling your money, other than the fact that they're a bigger government with more problems and a larger bureaucratic machine to run?
I think it's really funny. If you were to put it into a question to the public when they were asking, Danielle Smith is going to steal my money, ask them which bank account she's going to put that in. And you can hear the ridiculous in the answer of, would it be the ATB account or it would be the offshore account? It's not possible. Like it's laughable and ridiculous when you put it in that context. However, that is unfortunately how some of it is being spun. And so then they use those fear tactics. But if you were to take a step back and say, hey, wait a minute, let's not look at the fear. Let's actually look at the logic of this. We would know where our provincial government was spending that money. We don't want a provincial government having their hands in the pension plan. We want it completely separated from there. And what do we have right now with our pension plan in the federal government? What are they doing with our money? Who's appointing the people that are on the CPPIB board? And I'll let Tanner speak to that, because it's ridiculous to say, well, I don't want the government to steal my money, when in actual fact, we don't know that it's not happening right now. And at least if we're at home and we can have a pension plan and say, we don't want the provincial government being involved in this. We want it to be hands off, and it's a board separate completely from the government. That's a better option for all of us.
Yeah, it's absurd. The idea that we would want the provincial government, any provincial government, managing this pension fund is absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. We can't allow government to, for one moment, plunge its hands, even a finger, into this pension fund, because the purpose of a pension fund and the purpose of government are two totally separate things. The purpose of a pension fund is to earn you money and to make sure the money is there for you when you retire. That's all. It's not to push a social agenda, and it's not to push a political agenda. Now, the purpose of government, on the other hand, is to rule over the jurisdiction that has been appointed to it to rule. That's what it's there for. So that means government, if it were allowed to manage a pension fund, might well take a few $1 million here or a few $1 million there and hand it out to a failing business, not in the name of earning a healthy return because the business is failing, but rather buying some political points and maintaining power for a little bit longer. If you invest in some business, that business might give you as a government a kickback and allow you to hold office for another term, or who knows what might have you. Of course, that's nonsense, right? We don't want that as economists and as financial planners and as people who would prefer to see a pension plan that is thriving and successful. It's clear that government has to be totally separate from it. Now, right now in the Canadian pension plan, like Nicole kind of brushed on there for a moment, we see, for example, Trudeau sitting down pension bosses, including the CPP's bosses, and saying, we want you to invest in Canadian infrastructure, invest more money into Canadian infrastructure. Now, the bosses did what they wanted. They'd said, you know what, Justin, we're going to actually invest the way we like to invest. But nevertheless, it shows how already there is at least attempted interference from the federal government on the part of how the CPP is supposed to invest its surplus, its money every year. Likewise, like Nicole brushed on again, Canadian pension plan investing board members are appointed by Freeland with consultation from the finance ministers from the provinces. That's who appoints the board members. Now, that is not for one moment independent of government, right? Quite the contrary. If Freeland has the ability to appoint and remove Canadian pension plan investing board members at her will, then clearly political interference is woven into the fabric of the CPPIB. So far from allowing government to control this pension plan, we want the opposite. We want to see less government involvement in it than there is right now with the CPP. The less government involved or involvement in the plan, the better. They have to be totally separate.
As an aside there, I know this is not directly on topic, but if you guys were to give Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland a to F score report card wise and on her handling of Canada's finances, CPP included, what letter score would you give her?
Well, it depends on what Freeland's goals are. If Freeland's goals are to foster an economically healthy country, then I give her an F, right? She's terrible at handling finances. The budget's a mess. Canada's a mess. Inflation is a mess. Money printing is a mess. Taxes are a mess, and so on and so on. Now, she doesn't, the CPP's finances are managed by the CPP and by the CPPIB. It is separate from the federal government. It's designed to be that way. But nevertheless, it doesn't take away from the fact that the finances of the country, if Freeland wants to see a healthy country, are being used. They're abused. Now, if Freeland's goal is to crush Canada, and if it's to destroy this nation we love, then I give her an A. She's doing a marvelous job, right? She's doing exactly what anyone else ought to do to completely crush and destroy a country so that it could be rebuilt in some hideously socialist image, right? So depends on what vantage point you take, how you look at it. Yeah.